The smell was unbearable. It seeped through the floorboards, clung to the air, and wrapped itself around anyone who stepped inside the small house on Somerdale Avenue. The officers gagged, their stomachs twisting in revolt. They had smelled death before, but this was something else. Shovels hit the damp soil beneath the crawlspace, each movement unearthing more than just dirt. Skeletal remains, bones tangled together in a mass grave. 33 young men and boys. Their final resting place had been beneath the feet of their killer, John Wayne Gacy. What lay before them was a nightmare, and at the center of it was a man who had once smiled, entertained children, and dressed as a clown. But behind the painted grin was a monster, one of the most sadistic serial killers in American history. To the world, John Wayne Gacy was a successful businessman, a respected community member, and a man who loved to entertain. He hosted neighborhood parties, was active in local politics, and even dressed up as Pogo the Clown for children's events. No one suspected that beneath the makeup and forced laughter lurked a predator with an insatiable thirst for control, pain, and death. But his double life began to unravel when one boy went missing, and his family refused to let it go. On December 11, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast vanished after telling his mother he was going to meet a contractor about a potential job. That contractor was John Wayne Gacy. When Robert didn't return home, his parents reported him missing. Police began their investigation and quickly learned that Gacy had been the last person to see him alive. At first, Gacy was cooperative, even charming, claiming he had never met the boy. But something felt off. As investigators dug deeper, the cracks in his story started to show. Detectives obtained a search warrant for Gacy's house. What they found inside was unsettling. A peculiar smell of rot and decay. They initially assumed it was plumbing issues, but when they found a receipt belonging to Robert Peast inside Gacy's home, their suspicions intensified. Gacy was placed under surveillance. Officers watched his every move, and then he started to unravel. Drinking heavily, driving erratically, and even boasting to officers about his connections, Gacy's confidence was slipping. Detectives could feel it. He knew the walls were closing in. On December 20th, 1978, after days of pressure and an undeniable trail of evidence, Gacy broke down and confessed. He described in chilling detail how he had lured young men to his home under the pretense of offering them jobs. Once inside, he would handcuff them, claiming it was a magic trick, and then, the real horror would begin. He raped, tortured, and strangled his victims, then buried their bodies beneath his home, stacking them on top of each other like discarded trash. But not all were buried beneath the house. Some he dumped into the Des Plaines River when his crawl space had become too full. The detectives could hardly comprehend the horror. Authorities soon returned to Gacy's home, armed with shovels and an army of forensic experts. What they uncovered would haunt even the most hardened investigators. Body after body, skull after skull. Some remains were so decomposed that identification became nearly impossible. The sheer number of victims was staggering. The youngest, just 14 years old. The media swarmed the scene. America watched in horror as the true scale of Gacy's evil was exposed. John Wayne Gacy's trial began in 1980, and it was nothing short of a circus of horror. His defense: insanity. But the evidence was overwhelming. Survivors who had barely escaped testified, recounting the unimaginable horrors they endured. Families of the victims wept, their pain raw and unhealed. The jury took only 2 hours to find him guilty. 33 counts of murder, the most by any single individual in United States history at the time. He was sentenced to death. For 14 years, Gacy sat on death row, painting disturbing self-portraits of himself as Pogo the Clown. He showed no remorse. But on May 10, 1994, his time ran out. Strapped to a gurney, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His final words? Kiss my ass. Even in death he remained defiant, but justice had been served. The case of John Wayne Gacy remains one of the most disturbing in American history. A man who hid in plain sight, a predator who wore a mask of normalcy. His crimes forced parents to be more vigilant, changed how missing persons cases were handled, and reminded the world that true evil doesn't always come in the form of a shadowy figure, it can wear a painted smile. But in the end, his victims were found, their stories told, and their families given a semblance of closure. John Wayne Gacy was a monster, but he was also a lesson, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying killers are the ones who hide in plain sight. If you found this story chilling, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth true crime stories. There are many more tales of justice, survival, and the relentless pursuit of the truth. Subscribe now and never miss a story.